well, we should be live now.
Nice.
So,
All right.
Hopefully people.
How you guys doing today?
If anybody's listening, there's a little bit of an echo, but we can hopefully get past that. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start off. First of all, it's good to see you guys. I kind of put this thing together, so thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
Yeah.
We've got about 25 hours left of our Kickstarter SIGNA, so that's kind of what's on our minds right now. So we're really trying.
Yeah, congratulations, guys! It's awesome. It's a great book, and it's funded. It's great.
Thanks. We're gonna stay on right through to the end. We're gonna be live streaming right through till the end.
Yeah,
this is the marathon. Yeah. We're filibustering.
So, question for you guys: obviously, you guys doing a sci-fi project together is like a no-brainer. It just makes a lot of sense. Did you guys ever debate doing something that wasn't sci-fi as a creator?
No, I don't think we actually did. Just saw the genesis of the way this particular. I mean, it wasn't even like a commercial. I mean, at some level, it was commercial consideration, but that wasn't even how it came from. Just out of the idea that this is an idea that Andrew had. I mean, the genesis of it was the idea that Andrew had. He pitched about Transformers years ago, so it was always locked into that world.
What was your initial idea, Andrew?
Well, I pitched a Transformers idea about DevCon, this G1 Transformer that hadn't been in the comics yet, being sent to find Six Shot because Six Shot was off in the galaxy, who knows where he was because the war ended, and he's a super powerful robot that could destroy a world. But it's where is he? Someone's got to be accounting for stuff like this. So I figured that organization in More Than Meets the Eye that was patrolling the galaxy would send somebody after him to find him. So I figured they sent DevCon, who was like a bounty hunter. I was going to approach him like a Han Solo kind of bounty hunter. And then he'd find him, but he was just kind of aimless. So he wasn't a danger to anybody. He was just hanging out in a bar or something, like one of the bars in your book or something, crowded space bar. And or the cantina at Star Wars or something like that, but he was just kind of aimless and listless and didn't have a purpose anymore. And then they'd end up, instead of being enemies, they'd end up going on some space adventure together. I don't remember much more than that, but that's kind of the genesis of it. And then John was like, "Yeah, I know what's going on behind the scenes, and I just don't know where we'd have the space for it."
Yeah, I think there was a. Six Shot hadn't been in the comics, but I think he was he was going to appear in More Than Meets the Eye already. Now, I mean, we've talked about this a million times. This is the first time I'm remembering that, but I think that was what the deal was he was already that part of it was already kind of locked in somewhere.
Okay. Well, I see we have some watchers. If anybody wants to ask questions while we're talking, feel free, especially if it's about our work and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought one thing I really liked what you guys did is that there's a real sense of history to that world already. I like that you have these kind of scavengers, but then there's been this war in the past. I thought that was really cool. I think in the main character too, her story, what we've seen. I think you guys did a great job of making a fun first issue that also hints at this bigger world. How much? So it's 6 issues, right?
The first arc, right, John? I mean, at least one 6-issue arc, but we have ideas for after that. Yeah.
Yeah. You have a rough idea of how many you would do? How many series?
I don't know. I mean, we know where the story is going. I actually don't know how long it would necessarily take to get there, to be honest. I don't know what you do, Andrew. I don't.
Well, in my mind, I could see the story taking a trilogy of. Someone chimed in, by the way, that they think Six Shot was last seen in Devastation, but not sure.
You open more than in Last Light?
Yeah, I don't recall. I'm trying to remember. But to answer your question, I could see it being in a nice, clean trilogy, and then after that, it would be left to the place that could really go somewhere different if we want to.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about ideas of where to go after that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how about you? Do you have plans for Killlock going forward?
Kind of the same thing. I think I want to do these 3 series will be kind of the end of the current era, and then I've been toying with the idea that I'm always really fascinated by because of the fact that they're robots and they live for so long, to jump 1,000 years in the future and see where they are. That's something whether it's Transformers or Gandalf or whatever, you're told these characters are so old But what if you saw them then, and then you literally jump like 1,000 years into the future or a million years? You know, I think that could be pretty interesting. But
yeah, that was one thing that I always thought there was plenty of room for in Transformers. You know, they've been fighting for like millions of years. There's so many stories that could be told over that time.
I don't know if anyone's done it, but I always thought like there was a story to be told of someone who just, 4 million years of nonstop war. That seems like the PTSD would be.
Oh yeah,
Like we've dealt with some of that. I know we did some, but it is pretty amazing to think about fighting for that long.
yep. It's almost unfathomable. You know, it's like humans can't really comprehend that.
Yeah.
Paul just asked if every series will kick off with a Kickstarter. So John, maybe you're better for that answer.
I don't know. It's a good. We're not that far. I don't know. We're not that far into it. Probably. I mean, it seems like a good idea to get the word out. But I don't know. I guess we have to see how things.
And then there's another question I think that'd be good for you too, John, because you're more on the back end.
Yeah. The like hardcover that's up on Kickstarter will not be going to traditional comic book distribution. I mean, there's a store level, so stores can buy them from the Kickstarter, but that's the only place that's going to be available. But the actual 6 issues, the 100% the plan is to have it go to comic book stores,
like regular old copies without any extras.
Yeah.
So, Livio, one thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was I remember the first time I heard about your Killock idea. We were sitting at this bar in Tokyo that we liked, this high-rise bar overlooking the city. A long table was actually the one in Lost in Translation, but you were telling me your idea, and it sounded like this really cool idea about this sci-fi robot world where universe where they're all connected, and if one died, they all would, and all this kind of stuff. And that was a few years before it actually came out and came together, and we know what that's like. But I just didn't know if you could talk a little bit about your process, like how you came up with these 4 characters and what your inspiration was, or what the first gem of the idea was, and like how it all came together.
Yeah, like the initial idea I had was just having characters from very different walks of life that would never normally be in the same room together, have to protect each other. And so the idea of them being linked, that was like a very early on idea. And then after that, it was figuring out like how many of them should there be, I thought 3 was kind of too little, 5 was like too much. So I thought 4 felt like just unwieldy enough of a group where they would really have to like work to get along. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it was like the actual like characters came together pretty quick, or at least like the archetypes. I wanted this kind of moral but violent soldier against the kind of very intelligent but kind of morally shady engineer, and then an addict, like kind of a street level person, and then a kid just thrown in. That felt like a lot of like rich storytelling could happen from there, hopefully.
And then like the writing's so good. Had you done a lot of like writing before? Like,
I mean, I did creative writing for fun. Like I really enjoyed doing that. I think it was just kind of like studying far better writers and kind of learning as much as I could and like trying my hand at it, And I think I worked on the first series for like 3 or 4 years before it got published, like a lot of just, cranking away at it and like around my other Transformers work and hoping people would like it,
Yeah, it's kind of where we're at. Yeah, we went back and forth for years.
When did you start? Like when did you have the initial concept, but when did it shift from Transformers to an original sci-fi thing? How many years ago?
Do you remember, John?
No.
I muted myself in an effort to get rid of the echo, but
yeah, that's a good idea. When I'm talking, you can mute it, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It was back before I came back to IDW where we started talking about it.
Oh, so it's been a while, yeah.
Yeah. It was a very different version of it then as well, though. Like that's I mean, I guess we could actually there were 5 pages that Andrew drew for this sort of previous version that was way more Star Warsy. I mean, I guess we've kind of talked about it a bunch if you've been following us everywhere that we've talked about it. But the by that point it sort of mutated into this. Andrew and I talking to each other and thinking like, hey, Star Wars. After the Empire's defeated, I bet that'd be really a crazy time. It's weird they've never done any media in that era, it was a very different world back then because
Wow, yeah.
it was quite a bit of media set in that time period.
Have you guys shared those pages anywhere?
What's that?
Have you shared those first 5 pages anywhere?
Well, we can announce right now our next stretch goal. Is it our next one? The next stretch goal after the one that's up there now. We've got 2 short stories coming in at $15,200 or something because I had a number in the title for my story. But if we pass that, if we hit 1,600, we can. This should be going up before the end of the live stream, maybe.
That's
If not,
awesome.
a
That's
little
great.
later. But we have a digital bundle that's going to be a stretch for everybody. That will have a what's it going to have? It's going to have a PDF. We'll have the black and white art for issue 1 next to the script for issue 1 and the original pitch stuff, the original art from that from the previous version, as well as an MP3 of Andrew's theme song, SIGNA. So we're excited about that.
That's
You
amazing.
heard it here first.
That's
Yes.
amazing. That's very cool. Well, you did a theme song?
Well, sort of. I had a musical track that like I've done a lot of recording over the years for my own stuff and little side projects and music projects and stuff. And I had this one thing I thought might fit for the trailer, which we didn't use for the trailer, but John's like, hey, why don't we release that as like an extra? So I mean,
That's great.
why not?
I love stuff like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, how different are those first 5 pages? Just a completely different concept, characters, everything?
No, there's some of the same designs. Like the main character's design was used, but it was kind of a different. It was a different character.
Yeah.
So there's one character that's pretty much like gender swapped. There had been this female like alien character because we had more aliens and more of like a intergalactic universe kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And but we reused some of the names, some of the costumes and stuff. You know how it is. It's like now something like Star Wars comes along. You know, Lucas's first ideas were so much different than what we got. Over time, you rewrite and you rewrite. It's just you figure it out. But some things stay, some things don't. But it was like an action-packed scene with some bounty hunters and some intergalactic security forces and things. And
that's cool. No, I love seeing alternate versions and early drafts. That's great. Now, your design work on this, Andrew, I really thought like there was a lot I liked. I mean, I thought the big wide shots were amazing. The scale on the ships was great. The characters' masks I thought were really cool and distinct. Was there any inspiration behind that?
Yeah, well, I wanted each one to have like a unique one because I wanted it to be very practical in the sense like when you watch something like Star Wars again, it's like a space fantasy. You know, it's like they get outside in an asteroid and they're just like might have a little oxygen mask on, but that's the most you'll ever see. You know, you never see them in like spacesuits and stuff. Rarely. But I wanted ours to be like if they're flying around space in ships, you know, there's going to be times where they might have to exit the ship or they might get blasted out of the ship. So they want to have protection and stuff. So I wanted to make sure they have full body covering and stuff. I wanted each one to have like a unique helmet. That's and great. I didn't want to do like the Western thing necessarily. I wanted to look at inspiration of like industrial era. Like I was looking at early military, like test pilots and things like World War I kind of era. I was looking at like what people would wear in mines and things and like early like deep sea divers. And I was kind of looking at that kind of inspiration. I wanted it to look like a lived in industrial from like some different time because ours takes place in a time where like society's collapsed and a lot of this stuff, they don't have a lot of resources. So they're kind of like making use of stuff that's been around before. So I wanted it to look like you weren't quite sure what time period it was from.
That's great. Yeah.
And then it's interesting too, because like I did a lot of that too with like the world building because I'm really interested in like collapsed, like kind of societies, I guess you'd say, or like structures in the world. Like I know we've talked before, you've seen Skyfall, like Gunkanjima or Hashima Island, where they go to the one part, that abandoned island off the coast of Japan is interesting to me, you know, like for people who don't know. It was like bought by Mitsubishi in the late 1800s, and then it was like a coal mining place. But what's really interesting about it is like in the early 1900s, it was the first place in the world that had high-rise concrete structures. So it had like 7-8-story buildings. They had movie theaters. They had schools. It was the most densely populated place in the world for a while. And then when petroleum took over, like they abandoned the coal mine, and now it's just like this abandoned weird city island place. It's almost like a abandoned city state or something, but it's really interesting. I've always been fascinated by like that kind of decaying, once great, now decaying kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I like off the coast of Peru too, there are these huge industrial facilities from like the industrial age where they harvested bat guano for like for energy and stuff. And you'll go by there in a boat, and it's just these big hulking like metal structures that look like half parts of bridges or something. But so that kind of stuff is what I was thinking about when I was building like the world, because for various reasons it's kind of in a state of decay and it's been abandoned, and all that kind of stuff was in my mind. Just trying to go for like those industrial kind of awe-inspiring kind of imagery.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it comes across that way. I love that stuff too. I love just that sense of like history, and there's get a little echo here. Okay. But yeah, like there's a great sense of history in the book of like, these things have been around a while. I'm fascinated by that stuff in real life too. I mean, like also when locations are repurposed later, like there's a in LA here, there's a bar I liked. It was a former power plant, but they just left all the equipment inside, and then they just made it this kind of like trendy bar. But it feels like a Gotham City kind of hangout.
Yeah,
it's so odd, and like, but I love that stuff.
Or even stuff like, I'm sorry, John was trying to. I was gonna say that building. Poor John has to mute it every time. But that building like in LA they use for Blade Runner and stuff. I know you've been there.
Oh yeah, Bradbury, I love it. They actually put a bar in there too, so you can actually drink in there with the Blade Runner scenery. It's really cool.
Nice. Is it Blade Runner themed, or is it just happen to be in the building?
It just happens to be there. Although they do have a couple framed like black and white photos from the shooting there. But it's funny. It's just an office building now. Like there's offices, people work every day.
Do you ever see that Jack Nicholson movie that was filmed there too? That Wolf, I think it's called Wolf. He was like a werewolf.
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah.
It's not great, but
yeah,
it was also filmed there.
Yeah.
But anyway, John, were you trying to jump in there?
Oh yeah. Well, I heard bat guano. I'm not gonna not bring up a bat guano anecdote, but you guys are talking Skyfall and then the bat guano thing. Dr. No, the novel was about bat guano. In the movie, they turned it into a nuclear reactor, but in the novel, it was about harvesting bat guano because it was super important to fertilizer, right? Like it was like they needed that for fertilizer, and it wasn't until they as I understand it, we literally could not support the population of the planet Earth we have now without artificial fertilizers. Like there just wouldn't be enough farming with that. The guy that developed that is also the guy that developed nerve gas in World War I, and also the gas that was used in concentration camps.
Wow.
So like one of those like everything good and everything bad all at once, or if you like people existing, it's good. But the population, the fact that the population didn't collapse in the 1800s.
I was just listening to a podcast about that. I think he might have also won like a Pulitzer or something. It's kind of like the guy who invented dynamite, the Nobel Prize and all that kind of stuff. It's like,
yeah, one of those. Just making chemistry. Some of it turned out good, some of it didn't.
It's all about chemistry. But anyway, like we're happy to take questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, we'll just keep on jabbing.
You guys,
really, any kind of dropping, any kind of animal dropping. Doesn't have to be bats.
Can you guys say how far along you are in the series?
We're currently working on the second issue, so the first issue is all done.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say we might not do some last minute edits and things, but it's in the pretty much in the can. It's pretty much ready to go. So
that's cool.
Currently working on the second issue. We got it scripted, and I'm drawing it.
Nice. Are we going to get to see more flashbacks of what went down? You don't have to spoil it if that's.
Yeah, I think we will see more. I think issue 2 is really mostly. I don't think there's any flashbacks in issue 2, right? It's kind of straight ahead, but we'll definitely get more pieces of the history and of what happened. I think issue 3 is going to have a bit of that, a bit of what happened, what people think happened, and where it's going to take our characters.
That's a cool idea. So not everyone's not aware of what exactly went down.
Well, I mean, it's like anything. There is the prevailing story of what happened, and other people or other forms of sentience might have different opinions about what happened.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the war was 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I mean, 100 years ago from now, there's a lot of unknowns. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. Even when we were growing up, like at least from I think we're all closer to the same age. That like World War II was our grandparents, or whatever. Like there are people that remembered that stuff, but they're gone. Like that's 80 years ago. Like you sort of have this. It's not a lot of time, but it also is enough time that stuff disappears or whatever. Again, it tied back into Star Wars. It's not going to be everybody forgetting the Jedi existed in 16 years, but
that was a little weird. Yeah.
Well, no, but it's also, I mean, to be fair to Star Wars, like the idea is they're far out, and the Jedi never went there, and it was probably always
yeah.
But yeah.
But like, our universe, our quote unquote universe we're creating is kind of like a bit disconnected too. It's not like everybody's living in different places trying to scrape by. So people probably hear different things. People have experienced different things. Our main character saw something as a child that, when you think about it, she was a child, experienced something traumatic like most comic book characters do. And she's probably not 100% sure if what she saw really is what happened, especially if a lot of people don't want to believe that she saw what she saw.
Yeah.
So that's part of it too. So that might be a little bit of an unreliable narrator. Might have to wait and find out if everything played out exactly as she saw it.
That's cool. When did you come up with the actual title SIGNA?
That wasn't that long ago. Like we've been through a few different titles, and every time we had a title that we really liked, we'd realize that like it had been used somewhere else, or some like video game would come out using that name or something. So
yeah, and not in one of there's ways, like obviously there's going to be stuff that like carries over, but there's a bunch of stuff where it was like, oh, there's a big thing we didn't read that everybody else in the world knows. Like that word and we don't, or whatever.
I worry about that all the time, that you create something and then there's some manga book or some anime you've never heard of that has something similar. That keeps me up at night. And then also the thing that scares me is hopefully we all go bigger in our careers. The people that will sue you for things that are absolutely like unrelated. I was talking to somebody at Blizzard who they got sued on StarCraft by the company that makes Star Wagons, which are like the movie trailer Star Wagons. Those names are completely different. The product is different, but they still got sued. Like, so I mean, I know like James Cameron was saying he got sued on Avatar like dozens of times, and so that's the kind of stuff that's pretty scary. But,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
like anybody sees something come along that they think they can get a piece of, and they go for it. But I was even at like C2E2. I think I texted John about this. I was sitting there and I had a poster. I had prints out for SIGNA for anybody who took part in the Kickstarter. By the way, we have a Kickstarter going. Got about 24 hours left. And I just had it said SIGNA, and these two guys walked by and they kind of like pointed at it and they SIGNA and kind of chuckled. I'm like, what is funny? I almost wanted to go after them and be like, hey, I'm just curious. What was funny? Like, was it like an inside joke? Did it sound like something else? Or is there something else out there we don't know about?
Yeah.
So, full on Pesci, like, what is this? Is it a clown?
Yeah.
Right. What's funny? What's music?
Yeah, I could have taken that approach too. But, no, but it's been really cool. Like we've shown it to some people, and like I was really nervous to get it out in front of people, that people were just going to hate it and stuff. I don't know. I'm always self-conscious like that, but we've shown it to some creators like yourself and some other people, and everybody's been really supportive so far. And that might just be because they're our friends, but
no, it's legitimately good. Yeah. And also I think it's like I think these days too, people want new things to read. They want characters they haven't seen before,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm way more likely to read a new idea these days than just read an existing character. It's just my taste is kind of different now. But
it's also a challenge to like get something new in front of people and get people interested. People might love Transformers and X-Men and all that kind of stuff, but like, especially at these conventions, like I'll have it out there and I'll have a little sign out for it and stuff, and I'll try to talk to people about it. And some people are like really into it and genuinely engaged, and then a lot of people though just their eyes kind of glaze over and they want to look at my Transformers prints, you know. So it's like it's hard.
Yeah, it's two camps too for sure. You know, like I remember when I was younger and I was a huge like Todd McFarlane Spider-Man fan. And when he was leaving Spider-Man to make Spawn, I was like, why are you leaving Spider-Man? That's like the best gig in the world. What is this Spawn thing? And now I totally understand the appeal of like creating your own thing, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I think we've all three of us benefited from something like Transformers, because it's sort of like the sci-fi pedigree work on that and then doing your own sci-fi thing. It's like you go in with an existing kind of following, and also you have a little bit more authority of like having worked in a sci-fi world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, yeah. Sorry. You know what? I thought I had something to add there. I don't. You're right. I agree.
As far as like what you were saying earlier, like why did we decide to go sci-fi? I don't know if it wasn't so much that we're like, oh, people know us from Transformers, let's take advantage of that. It was more like kind of where the story took us, you know?
Yeah.
Like the ideas we had, and it just kind of came along naturally. And we're both into sci-fi and stuff. I mean, we were constantly referring to like old books that we got in the 80s about like big hardcover books about painted visions of what the universe might look like out there that we haven't explored yet, and like like you know, big books about the cosmos and things, and like to Star Wars, to Star Trek, to you know, Babylon 5, or you know, more serious hard sci-fi books that we've read and stuff. So we did talk a lot about that stuff, and that really influences us as we went along. Plus, you know, all the movies we've seen. And
sci-fi is my favorite genre for sure, because it's like you can do anything with it. Like, you know, in a sci-fi universe, you can go to a planet that has a primitive, low technology civilization, whereas you can't do that in like Lord of the Rings. You can't just have a spaceship show up. It just doesn't work the other way around, you know. Right. But I think with sci-fi, it's like anything you want to incorporate. I mean, horses walking on a Star Destroyer. You can put in whatever you want, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you can do time travel. You can do, you know, warp things or whatever. You know, alternate dimensions, or like you said, I mean, you can have superheroes in a sci-fi. You can have all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
As well as if you're doing like like a crime book or something, you know, you need to have crime in there or criminals or something. If you're doing science fiction, you can have crime in there and you can have criminals. You know what I mean? Like it's just so encompassing of everything. There's
right.
Like, you know, if you want to do like a Western, there's a million sci-fi Westerns, you know, like that's awesome.
Like Blade Runner is like a hard-boiled noir detective sort of thing set in sci-fi. Yeah, for sure. You can. It's almost like taking Shakespeare. You can put that in all sorts of different contexts, but sci-fi is the context you can put all sorts of things into. Yeah.
I'm also fascinated with science fiction, like good science fiction, where the verisimilitude, or like when you make it believable. I don't know why that's so rewarding, but kind of when you see a sci-fi movie where, you know, a ship's engine's firing, they add like warnings to that, like, you know, making that world feel so real. There's something like really thrilling about that, you know. It's
a good word. It's a word that I always have in my mind when I'm trying to draw this kind of stuff, like giving things a certain verisimilitude. It's hard to say, verisimilitude. I read it more than I say it, but like it's definitely that sense of realism and believability that you want to like. Even like that's another thing too that like influences me is when you look at like model makers, like those old ILM model makers, like Lauren Peterson and stuff. Like when they talk about, you know, if you want to give scale to something, put a ladder on it or put a little door on it, you know, and that gives a sense of like how big it's going to be. And you know, if you know a person's going to go in there, the rest of this thing is going to be huge. So I definitely take those kind of cues, almost like model making when I'm building like a building hanging off of a cliff or something, or some old ruined gigantic structure.
I saw, you probably saw it too, but Adam Savage, who does a lot of YouTube videos about Star Wars and everything, he had a really funny metaphor for the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. He said the metaphor is, in Star Trek you have 4 windows and they're all lit. In Star Wars you have 4 windows and one of them is burnt out. And like a rust stain. Like that's so funny, but that's like just the universe, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I was watching one of his videos recently about like the leftover props and costumes they have from C-3PO.
Yeah.
And like the claustrophobic in me, like never really stopped to think about how unbearable that must have been for Anthony Daniels to walk around.
I'm sure on that first movie, Anthony Daniels was like, I want to kill myself. Because he's like, we're in the middle of the desert. I think this movie's going to be a piece of shit. Like,
and once he's like locked into that thing, he's stuck. Like, if he falls over, he has to rely on someone else to pick him up. And
it's pretty wild.
Scratch his butt or like anything, you know? It's like he's just.
Yeah. Did you happen to see the one video on YouTube? It was Adam Savage meeting with the costume designer who did the Darth Vader costume for the Obi-Wan Disney Plus series?
I don't think I saw that one.
That was wild because that costume, there was a level of craft in that costume that blew me away. Like basically the wrinkles on the Vader suit on his chest, those are intentionally sewn in so they can never not wrinkle that way. Like, so they matched it to the original movie, just what was kind of accidentally done, that he would just have wrinkles because of the way he moved. They put that in intentionally. I was like, that's wild.
Even how, like, you know, like in A New Hope, you sometimes can like see the eyes through with the red eye and stuff. It's funny how they take that stuff into account, like putting in that little bit of redness and stuff. Because when I was a kid, I just only ever saw black lenses on him. But, you know, but it's funny how they like notice those things and take those things into account. Like even how he changed a little bit over the 3 movies. Like he got shinier and stuff, you know, like his costume, and like now they take that into account when they're doing a new show or something, like when in the timeline it took part and you know, things like that. But what else was I gonna say? So there's something else I was gonna ask you. Are you currently working on anything like now, or it's nothing you can talk about? Are you pursuing more ideas, or?
I'm working on 2 creator-owned things right now. I can't really talk about it, but one of them is like a World War II sci-fi kind of thing. So that's about halfway done. That's the current thing I'm working most of the time on right now.
Okay. Yeah, this has taken up most of our time, obviously, and John's got a full-time job, so.
Yeah, it's consuming, man. Making your own thing is definitely consuming.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Paul. Paul just said he loves it.
Sweet.
And he said when they got the final RoboCop costume on set, they had to give everyone a day off, so Weller could get used to it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I bet. That's what happens when I get dressed every day. I have to take a day to get
That's why you only have the clothes on every other day. Yes. I've always wondered that.
Half of our calls, I'm just sitting here naked. But so what other shows are you doing this year, Livio? Do you have any conventions to promote or anything?
Yeah, I'm doing Phoenix Comic-Con at the end of this month, and then I'm working with Whatnot SMZ Comics for San Diego Comic-Con, but not having a table. Then I'm going to do New York and maybe Tokyo. We'll see. And LA Comic-Con. But what about you?
Well, next week I'm going to Switzerland for Fantasy Basel, which is supposed to be the biggest I mean, I don't know how this compares to Angoulême, that month-long festival in France, but for like a one-day weekend Comic-Con, they say it's the biggest one in mainland Europe. So I've been wanting to do that for a while. So I'm going to be going there. I might do San Diego. Yeah. I'm signed on for Dragon Con in August, I think.
Yeah.
What else am I doing? I'm doing a signing at my local comic shop in June.
Yeah.
Hopefully New York, hopefully Tokyo.
Yeah.
Might do San Diego.
That's cool.
Year, but I don't think I have a table. I think I just go maybe promote our book and stuff. Yeah. What about you, John? Are you going to be going to any conventions? Or?
Yeah, I think San Diego is probably the only one left this year. I was at WonderCon briefly, but we'll be at San Diego. I won't have a table or anything. Pug doesn't have a table, but we'll have some panels. Presumably, they actually haven't announced the panels for San Diego yet, so I was speaking prematurely. The plan is Pug will have some panels, and hopefully we'll be talking SIGNA. Definitely the plan is to be talking SIGNA on one of them, but you never know, I guess.
Is there a release date yet? Or are you allowed to share that publicly?
For SIGNA? For
SIGNA.
No, I mean the Kickstarter should be out by like end of summer. I mean the comic's done. It's just going to be dealing with printing and putting in back matter and stuff. And assuming we hit the stretch goals, the new Pro stories.
That's awesome.
So,
are you both writing the prose story, or I saw something like that online?
yeah, we're each writing one, so you can.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You get
I'm excited. It's like one of the funny. I mean, one of the funny things about SIGNA is everybody who is working on it has professionally written comics. So like me, Andrew, Rhonda Pattison, and Chris Murray.
Nice.
All of us have, so plenty of space for other people to come in and write stuff. So I'm excited to see what Andrew does.
Yeah, that's fun. Can you say what your stories are, like a rough idea of what you're covering?
Well, mine's going to be sort of like the ground level view of what happened, like when the war happened 100 years ago. So give a little more context into that, and then, but it's going to be from like a ground level, real person point of view. So they don't know that much more than we do, but like, than the reader does. But yeah, it'll give a sense of like what it was like and what happened, as far as like the war on Earth.
Yeah, and then mine's gonna be set. It's like within a year or two of where the story picks up, but it'll be sort of showing a little bit more of the world. And in the beginning of the story, one of our main characters, Ket Navora, she's teamed up with this group of freelancers, as we call them. They're like sort of scavenger bounty hunter types, or maybe bounty hunter isn't the right word, but like scavengers or mercenary types, I guess is a better way to put it. And we're going to see them, like, kind of what they do when they're not in the beginning of SIGNA, like when they're not entering this epic story. A little bit of their lives.
That's cool. How long are your stories aiming to be?
As long as it takes.
Yeah. I mean, is it like a 5-pager short, or is it?
I think of the longest, right? I mean,
yeah, it'll be
a couple pages.
Yeah, I guess I'm not even sure that's going to translate to like comic book pages. I don't know. Yeah,
like a couple pages of a novel, right? Like, I mean, like
these won't be like novellas. They're not going to be like 100-pagers or something. It's it'll be a short piece, more than like a single page prose story that you'd find in a golden age comic book.
Sure.
Less than Infinite Jest. Somewhere in between the two.
Fair. We have a question from Paul. Is all art by Andrew, or will there be any inking support?
So far, it's all by me. I mean, the plan is that I'll do it all. Like, I'm just used to inking myself from all my time at IDW and everything, working with IDW. So, probably. But if we ever get to a point where I'm behind, you never know. Maybe I could get some help.
Yeah.
Make it look better. I don't know.
Well, our comic about living computers, they have these computers now. You can just type into it like a SIGNA page in the style of Andrew Griffith, and I think it'll make it. I think that's how it works, right?
God, what
Is that how it's done now? All right.
Oh God.
Oh wait, I could do that, couldn't I? No, I'm just kidding.
I saw a comment online. This guy was like, "AI is great. Finally, I can have all my ideas realized. I don't have to pay artists with their high horses." It's like, I think you're missing the plot, my friend.
All right. So one thing I think we should maybe talk about is like how we're making this, because if people haven't been following us, so we're kind of creating it together, writing it together. So that's one reason we're both writing a story is rather than John just writing it. Oh my goodness! Rather than just John writing it, me drawing it, like we've been co-plotting it together, and then like John will kind of sit down and put the script together, and then I'll do the drawing. So, each one of those takes about the same time, scripting and drawing.
Yeah, no. Well, it's also like that. Even that's not exactly how we're doing it. I mean, like we're plotting the thing out together, and then I'll write a plot, and we'll go back and forth on that, and edit it.
Yeah.
And, there'll be a lot of back and forth there. But you're actually drawing it from a plot, not a script.
True.
And Livio and I worked like that on at least a few projects, right? We did that too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that system a lot. That way you can kind of fine tune things and figure out if you need more space or less space.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to somebody about this a while back. That I don't know if it always comes through in everything I do, but like for me, comics are all about pacing. Like that's like the thing that they're about. And I remember like years ago, like talking to somebody, and I'm like, oh yeah, when you do really detailed art, like it slows the pacing down, and the person's like, well, that's not all detailed realistic art's about. I'm like, what else is there? What do you mean? But like to me, like that's such an intrinsic part of the of comics. Because like I came up making my own comics. Like I was like writing and drawing all my stuff when I was a kid and everything. And I was very much on that like sort of like theoretical or formalist side of things. I mean, I went to school for go to grad school for graphic design, and my master's thesis is on comic book page layout. Like it was like that was what I was really thinking about. So it's but and I think maybe because of that, like I don't, as important as it is to me, I don't want to be precious in that it has to be like my pacing for it,
Yeah.
So I would rather have like you guys structuring the thing in a way that works for you guys, and then like putting dialogue over that as opposed to like trying to fight somebody, as opposed to being that guy that you were just talking about, that like, oh, the artist is the one that's making my ideas come to life. Why are they complaining about anything?
Yeah.
Like that's not how I approach any of that stuff. It's the show is everybody together. Like the author, like on any of the stuff on RIE or Punishment or any stuff we did, like the author, like it isn't me illustrated by somebody else. The author is the writer and artist. So yeah, I don't know. I like working that way too. I just think it can create some cool effects. I mean, it doesn't work for every story all the time, or it certainly doesn't work for every artist. Like I remember sending when Kei Zama and I were doing Optimus Prime. I tried that on her and or on them, and they were like, "What? Write a script? What have you done? Like this isn't what I'm doing." So, okay, all right.
I heard, I won't name names, but I heard about one artist that the writer had to send him the names of all the characters that were going to be on the next page. And then the page after that, he couldn't actually just get a script. It was like, these 5 characters are on this page. Like he just had to work that way, which seems insane to me. But
wait, what?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood that.
Basically, he, as far as I understand it, the writer I talked to had to give the artist a list of characters that are on the next page. So these 5 characters. And then I think it was like separate from the script, but he had to know that first. And then he would only draw that page. And then it was the same process for the page after. It was some really weird, yeah.
Huh. To like from the other side of it, as an artist, like I've worked with some newer writers who kind of have to have some things pointed out to them sometimes. Like they might have like a group of characters, and they'll say like, this person's standing here on this side looking towards this person, and then this person's behind them, and this, and then the next panel they'll have dialogue, but like it'll need to be told in an entirely like different order, so they couldn't have been in that position to have it read well. And then the next page, like they'd be flipped around again, and it's like I have to explain. You should probably kind of try to visualize where everyone's going to be before, because in a comic book page, you have to read the dialogue in the right order, left to right.
I think some writers who don't have experience with comics think it's like a movie that when you cut, you're cutting to a different frame. Like I remember I've worked with some writers where they'll be like, okay, a splash page, like a battle in an arena, and then I want one tiny panel of like a woman sleeping in her bed, and I'm like, that second panel shouldn't be on that page. That's just that's just not good storytelling. Yeah. But in their mind, they're like, well, it's a movie, so there's a big fight, and then we cut to a woman in her bed. But I'm like, that's not how comics work,
Yeah.
So
all that, like, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was going to go to something else.
Oh, no, look, one of the things I was always that always struck me. I read this thing years ago that like Alan Moore's favorite sequence he ever wrote was a sequence. I think it was Big Numbers #2. Big Numbers was this like it's supposed to be a giant comic that when it was coming out, and then it collapsed after 2 issues, and Alan Moore and Bill Sienkiewicz. And there's a sequence where these characters are sitting at a dinner table. The camera, like you're shifting around one way. Meanwhile, characters are running around the table like counterclockwise, like the opposite direction. And all the characters are talking, but they're always talking in the right order. And like Alan Moore was like super proud of that sequence that he wrote. Like that was like the best, it was like he'd plotted all that stuff out. And like that's one of those things that's like that's really interesting, like as a writer, like just as a pure writer, which I mean Alan Moore drew some stuff, so he understands visuals to some degree. I mean, he certainly understands visuals, I guess, but like, he's somebody that's known for overwriting these panel descriptions and putting in a ton of information. And I think with both Eddie Campbell and what's his name, Dave Gibbons on From Hell and Watchmen. I remember the story with Eddie Campbell anyway. Like his wife would like highlight the parts of the script that Eddie Campbell actually had to read to draw the comic to, and after the rest of it. But like, that's really interesting to think about things that way. At the same time, Bill Sienkiewicz quit after that, and the comic never came out. And he as I understand, it was like not only quit, but like almost. I mean, it was like emotionally difficult for him. So there's like, okay, like there are definitely parts of it as a writer where like I am not going to sit there and try to tell you where these characters go, like,
yeah.
And I don't just be like good luck, but I mean, like you're like the person drawing is the one that's sitting there at the table, making the page work, So if that guy can't be on the left, I don't care, what I mean? Like that's not important to me. What's important to me is that he's where he needs to be for the story to happen and for you to be able to draw it. And I'm sure both you guys are probably saying they're like, yeah, you're terrible at this, John. Like you're awful.
Right. It's sort of like that thing.
You've ruined. I've been Bill Sienkiewicz and all these things for so many times.
It's sort of like that thing like you hear about between directors and cinematographers when like the cinematographer's like, don't tell me how to frame my shot. While meanwhile the director might want a certain, but other directors know to step back and let them do their thing. And, that kind of thing.
Yeah, collaboration is interesting. I mean, it really is like personalities have to click, and this director cinematographer, that whole relationship is really like I know like The Godfather is like a fascinating story because like Coppola's DP like didn't really respect him on the first movie, but then the first movie was like this masterpiece. Mm-hmm. So in the second movie, they operated on this like mutual respect. I mean, that's a really interesting. Yeah. Have you guys ever seen the script for Watchmen? By the way, have you ever read that?
The what? Sorry.
The script that Alan Moore wrote for Watchmen. No. It's in the Absolute Watchmen like hardcover, but it is wild. I mean, like the description on the first panel in Watchmen, right? The button is like this much text of what he wants to see.
Oh wow!
I mean, it is like it's pretty insane.
Sounds like a James Brown script.
Well, yeah.
But like even funnier than that though, if I'm remembering it right, like aren't all of his panel descriptions in all caps? And then his like dialogue is in mixed case or something.
Yeah,
like it's something like it looks like a Mad Men type thing. Like like angry tweets.
I'm not sure if Paul is quizzing us right now on the 5 C's of cinematography.
Oh, I don't know. What are they, Paul?
Yeah, you tell us. One thing I was going to say too, like, so you guys did that one issue, like the side story of RID where with all the time travel shenanigans with the ship and everything, that one issue that was super complex.
Oh yeah, that was.
What
great.
Was that like working that out? I mean, was it like a Marvel style? How much did you have over the control of the layout? Or John, did you script it out? Like, did you just wing it? What did you do? Like, because that was a really interesting, complex issue.
I remember I went to IDW to show John layouts in person.
Oh really?
The only time I've ever done that, because I was like, am I getting this? Because I'm terrible at math. And I was like, am I just understanding the basic, framework of it? But yeah.
Yeah, I do. In my defense, I do remember like saying to you in the beginning of it, hey, are you up for doing something pretty crazy? Will you do like is this okay with you? And it was
I remember, yeah.
It was the same thing with the Wheeljack issue of RID that Brendan Cahill drew. I like one point Brendan said something to me like it's actually easier for me to draw a lot of panels on a page because you don't need to put as much stuff in each panel. You can just you don't fill the background on it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Hey, would you be up for doing a whole issue that's nothing but 16 panel pages or splash pages?
I love when comics take that. Like I remember Eric Larson did a really cool Savage Dragon issue that was all splash pages.
Oh yeah,
I love that issue. Like it's like a huge fight scene, right? But then you also have like a quiet moment of a guy who died in his like jail cell, but it was still a splash page. But I thought that was really cool.
Have you seen his newest issues of the book?
I have, yeah.
They're splashing in a different way.
I cannot believe what that book is like today. Yeah.
I was talking to one of his cover artists at C2E2, and he was like, he's like, he went to whatever the edge is, like he went to it and just kept on going.
Like that, did we not? Like I was talking to Chris Ryle about that. That like, every few years I pick up like there'll be a few comics that like I keep drifting off from, you know, and I keep going back to, and I'm like, why did I ever not read? You know, like why did I stop reading Usagi Yojimbo for a few years? This is great. It's just as good now as it was then. And Savage Dragon is one I keep going back to every few years. Unlike every other one, every time I pick up Savage Dragon, I have no idea what's going on anymore. I don't know what reality they're in. I don't know who Dragon is anymore. Is it still the sun? Is it the, you know, whatever? And then the last one was like issue, I forget what it was, like 200 or something. It was like it was a big number issue, and like the first one I picked up in like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years probably, maybe longer. And I was just like, oh shit, this is a sex comic now.
Yeah, I think some stores carry it in their adult book section, like polybagged, like sealed up. Like, it is so wild what that book became, because it started off as like, I mean, it always had a bit of that to it, but it was like pretty serious kind of drama, like cop drama, and then it went to outer space, and then it went into wherever it is now.
Well, hey, when you have a creator-owned book, you can do whatever you want. Like, speaking of which, Paul had some things to say. I want to get to that, but speaking of which, like in your book, did you have any like reservations or give any thought to like the language in it and the adult level of language that you have in it? Because that's something we went back and forth a bit about. Yeah,
I really did. And actually, as I get older now too, I don't know if I would do that on another project, but at the time I was like, let me, especially it's really the Artisan who's the really kind of vulgar one. And I was like, well, I want to write a character with absolutely no filter that would say the worst possible things to people. And I thought that was an interesting opening for a book. And I thought it kind of humanized that character and broke it out of the sci-fi kind of tropes, you know, because it's like, you just don't really see a character talk that way that often. But I mean, it depends. Like there's less swearing in the second one too, you know, when new characters come in, it really is like the contrast of like, what I liked about it was that character could say just the most insulting, awful stuff, and then he would be in a room with characters that are just completely respectful, you know. So I like that. The contrast was really fun to me. I mean, the Artisan literally like says and does things in front of a kid you should never do. That's kind of his.
You sent me the PDF before it came out. Like I was reading it on a plane, like flying over the Atlantic or something, and like that his little sadistic moment in the beginning really kind of stuck with me there. I was like, man, that sucks. Like that's a
Well, I wanted a real, because I initially too, I was like, is anyone going to read this past the first like 4 pages? You know, so I wanted to have a pretty, hopefully, kind of gripping opening scene.
Yeah, it catches your attention. Paul was saying that 5 C's were a book, and then he says, do you have any reference recommendations for wannabe creators? Do you guys have anything?
Man, there's a lot. God.
I have some to recommend. I just want to double check that it's the right person's book I'm thinking of.
I mean, I can tell you while you're typing it in. One thing I've gotten a lot of information out of is audio commentaries from directors you like. I mean, I love working while you listen to that in the background. It's like you're reading a free film class on storytelling, on design, on editing, everything. So Ridley Scott, Coppola, Fincher, they all do really, really good commentaries. I've learned a lot.
I know he's
commentaries are great. Sorry.
What were you saying, Andrew? Sorry.
I was just saying in general, like storytelling, like it applies to movies and comics too. Yeah, audio commentaries are great. I was just echoing what he said, literally echoing.
I know he's a persona non grata in the world now, but Joss Whedon's commentaries I always thought were really good. Like I think his commentary on Avengers 2 is better than the movie. Like just out of like explaining why stuff happens in there, or sort of the theory of that stuff. Have you ever heard? I was talking to David Hedgecock about this on our podcast. Tune in every week on the Corner Box. But the Quentin Tarantino's audio commentary on True Romance.
I want to get that. I haven't heard it.
I haven't.
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen the movie,
really
but-
interesting because he doesn't do the commentaries for his own movies, but that's like as close to his own movie as you're gonna find.
Yeah.
It's really interesting just on the theories of storytelling in there or whatever, like the thoughtfulness between Tony Scott and him on making a movie.
That's
As
cool.
far as the question about reference books, so getting back to that, like some books that I read when I was first getting into this. So like I did like the cover contests and stuff, and I was starting to get work like inking and filling in on some pages. But like I'm like, man, I really don't know what I'm doing. I should learn about making comics, like really. So I got a number of books. I think it was Klaus Janson who wrote them, like DC Guide to Penciling, DC Guide to Storytelling, DC Guide to Inking.
Yeah,
And I
that was
remember
really
it good and informative.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when I was doing that master's thesis I was talking about, that's actually one of the books that I referenced in there. Like, there's a bunch of like how-to books about, and this is, I mean, I guess it's like 25 years old or 20 years old or something now, but like, there's a lot of comic reference books, and they're usually so specific to a certain type of comic, like how to draw manga or like how to draw comics the Marvel way. It's very much about how to draw 70s Marvel.
Yeah, that was like my Bible as a kid.
Me too. Yeah.
But the Klaus stuff, I think it's like he's such a good storyteller that there's just a lot of the stuff that he talks about in there is universally applicable to telling stories in comics.
I saw speaking of that Marvel book, I saw Neil Gaiman say something really funny about it one time. The one section, it's like it shows how two different ways to draw a fight scene. One is like the exciting Marvel way, and one is the boring way. Neil Gaiman was like, those boring pages look like Watchmen. Oh, dude, I was going to tell you guys, one other audio commentary I like that's just kind of funny is The Limey. Have you ever seen that movie? The Steven Soderbergh movie?
Yes, with Terrence Stamp.
Yeah. The commentary is great because it's Steven Soderbergh and the writer just kind of crapping on each other, but real. Like he'll be like, yeah, I remember you wrote this in the script. This didn't make any sense at all, so I cut it. And Lem Dobbs is the writer. He's like, no, I put that in. That's why you shot this thing at the end. This doesn't make sense because you cut that thing earlier. But they're like serious. It's pretty funny.
It is funny how like cinematography compares to comics in so many ways. Even like, I've watched commentaries before where they'll point out that like a character is flipped because of the eye line or crossing the degree line. And that's something in comics every once in a while. I have to flip something in Photoshop, and then it's like, oh shoot, the thing on his left is now on his right, so I have to fix that and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even thinking about that kind of detail.
That stuff is so like, especially on Transformers, that was like Starscream's talking to somebody. So you reverse the camera and Starscream's wing is just blocking. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, that stuff drives you insane.
Or now some battle damage was flipped and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I saw, this is kind of unrelated, but I just saw something really funny on Twitter before we hopped on that apparently no one caught this in the 30 years the movie's been out, but in The Abyss, there's apparently a scene where someone wipes the camera twice in one shot. Like the cameraman wipes the lens off twice in one shot, and no one's seen that for 30 years. And like once you see it, you're like, how the hell did this make it into the final movie?
Well, yeah, it's funny the stuff you don't notice. Like someone just pointed out the other day on Twitter that like Empire Strikes Back, Lando like basically changes the deal again, then he walks away, and Lando's like, this deal's getting worse all the time. Like when you see Lando turn to go to the elevator, Vader is still in it, standing there like he forgot to push the button or something. Like,
oh really?
The door's half shut, but you can see Vader still in there, like just
that's really
kind of awkwardly standing there.
That's funny.
I did want to ask you too about, as far as Killock, like what were your design influences, like especially like your four main characters? Like were you trying to, because people ask me like when I designed the mech, what was I thinking of, or why does it look so different than a Transformer and stuff? Were you trying to veer away from Transformers? Were you using other influences? Were you?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about your mech guy too. Yeah, like I definitely wanted to veer away from Transformers, and I wanted to go back to this thing that I liked when I was a kid, where design could be complex, but the silhouette and the colors were something a kid could kind of do. Like I always liked that about like a kid can draw a Star Destroyer. They can get a triangle shape. So I wanted these four characters, their silhouettes to be very different from each other, their colors very different. I wanted it, and also like at a quick glance, if I asked you like which one is the warrior, hopefully you'd be able to tell. You know,
The little one, right? No, I'm
yeah,
kidding.
the kid. Yeah. Well, I was I was really I was interested in that, and then, but then you guys know, it's like when you design a whole sci-fi world, there's a lot of stuff to figure out. It's like, what do their doors look like? Do they have chairs? You know, all that stuff has to be worked out. But what about you? What were your inspirations for the mech?
Well, like I definitely didn't want to do something that looked like a guy in a suit with like a mask and a helmet, you know, like a Transformer or a Gundam or something.
Yeah.
I wanted something unique. And, you know, it's so hard to make something unique with so many different robots and mechas out there. No matter which way you go, it's going to kind of look like something. So,
yeah,
I was thinking like going a little more like asymmetrical. And again, looking at like it having some kind of practical industrial use. So I wanted it to look kind of industrial and have function, you know? But I was looking at old, like there were these old comics John and I have talked about a bunch from DC called, was it Robotech Defenders, John? That were based on a series of models. And until you pointed that out in the one conversation, I forgot that I had some of those models too. And I forgot they were connected. But it was like a 2-issue miniseries from DC Comics in the 80s. And it doesn't look like normal Robotech. It's like kind of more like Battletech designs. In fact, didn't they cross over?
Yeah. All the Robotech. I think all the Robotech Defenders are first generation Battletech designs too. They were licensed for that.
So that's
like every Robotech design I think was licensed for Battletech.
So that's something I kept in mind. And then also like just our different trips to Japan, and like you and I, you know, we'll walk through those like electronic stores and they'll have tons of like or Akihabara and stuff. And they'll have like tons of just, it's like almost like a history of mechas, you know, like in animes and stuff. Like just I've taken pictures and like thought about things I liked and didn't like over the years. And I don't know. I tried not to look like any one thing too much.
Yeah.
But that's some of the stuff I was thinking about. And I just did, for years we were working on this. So I did sketches, little rough, like loose, you know, silhouettes and stuff, and like trying to get a sense of what it would look like. And I just one day got to this one that I liked, you know?
Yeah.
And I kind of stuck with that.
Yeah. Japan is really inspiring on a lot of levels. Like I know one thing I liked was when you go to Golden Guy in the bars, how they use the space because it's so tight. Mm-hmm. How much stuff they fit into the little like drawers and like shelves, and like I tried to incorporate some of that. I really like that idea too, of maximizing this little room. And you know, it's
almost like when you go to an IKEA and they'll have like, this is a 10x4 room. It's like, but they have all this stuff, in drawers or tucked away. Yeah. It's really interesting. I saw Paul had more comments about Battletech using Macross designs around the time Robotech was adapting Macross. Yeah.
Can you guys talk about what your average like daily work schedule is like? Like, do you like working in the mornings, like wake up early? Do you work through the whole day, or do you take breaks?
Well, like mine is different. Like, so I prefer to work like at night. Like my best time, I don't know why, is like midnight to 2 a.m. Like that's when I'm in the zone. That's when I'm doing my best work. But I'm also married, so like we try to coordinate our lives a little more because she usually is asleep by that point. So if I'm up working and she's sleeping, we never see each other. So a lot of times my day is just interrupted since I make my own schedule. A lot of times I'll do my errands through the day, and then like I'll finally sit down to work around 4 or 5. And then other days I'll get up at like 9 and start drawing, and then I'll have lunch, then I come back to it. And it really can vary. It also depends if I'm on a tight deadline. So like this book, SIGNA, we never really had a tight deadline. So I kind of did it at my own pace when I was in the right mindset for it.
Yeah.
But then I took a break and I worked on Godzilla that had a tight deadline. It was entirely different. Like SIGNA, I do like a page a week. I could take my time, put everything into it. And then Godzilla, I was doing like 4 pages a week, you know, so because I had to. Yeah. So when I really have to, I can really like nail it down and set certain hours to do it.
You guys probably share the same. Oh, actually, John. Yeah. What about you?
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know. Mine's weird. I mean, I've got 2 kids, so that means I have to get up early in the morning. I prefer being up at night, which those 2 things intersecting cause problems. So I get up as late as I can, which is usually me hitting the snooze bar till about 6:25.
Oh no!
Then I'm up getting the kids out. Occasionally, I will pass back out for a few minutes before 9 once they're gone. But I'm usually trying to be up and working like 9:30 or so. Like my time splits so weirdly that I have a full-time job, but it's also not like a normal full-time job. So I'm at home, it's very, there's always something to do. But I try to get out and like walk around, or I start to go, I start to get less productive. I start feeling more, I don't know, just more, I don't know. It's good to get out and go around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is amazing how much just walking around a little bit can kind of fire you back up or like crack a story idea,
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say along those lines? John talking about when he gets up and when he stays up and when he gets up reminds me of his stories about me texting him at all hours of the night.
Yeah.
And,
I have a handful of friends like that who I can text at like 1 a.m.
and like it'll be ideas about our book and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, what's funny, like, so the end of my day is also a lot like that, where it's like, okay, I finish, got to go get dinner ready for everybody, get the dishes put away, get the young child bathed, get him to bed, make sure the other one's in bed, and then by then it's it's like 10, it's somewhere between 10 and 11, or whatever, and I'm like exhausted, and then that's when Andrew starts texting me, but it's like I'm exhausted, and it's like 11 or 11:30, but it's like 2:30 his time,
I figure you can get it later.
I remember back my single days, I would stay up till 4:30 in the morning working on a lot of nights. I would get on this weird nocturnal, like flipped schedule. Yeah. And that was even single. That's a weird kind of not healthiest thing in the world to be like, I'll stay up till 4:30 in the morning working every night and then sleep until like noon. I mean, it's a little, yeah.
Sometimes my wife will go visit her family and like she'll be away for a few weeks at a time, and I'll get into that where I'll stay up later trying to meet a deadline, and then a little bit later trying to meet a deadline, and then a little later. Before you know it, I'm staying up till like 5 in the morning and then sleeping till 11 or something. It's like it's really hard to break that pattern.
Well, those hours though I find really peaceful though. The super late night hours where you're just working, like it's no disturbances really.
Yeah, it is weird though. Like I'll be up working, have my light on, I look outside, my entire neighborhood is dark, and there's not a soul around that's awake, and it feels weird. It's almost like this weird isolating kind of.
I remember when quarantine was happening, I was working on my balcony at the time, and I was just staying up really late on my balcony working. And one day I was like, well, what's the point? We're still quarantined. I just watched the sun come up. I just worked until the sun actually came up. And I was like, I don't think I'll ever do that again, but it's kind of a weird memory. But,
when we were little, my brother and I used to like try to stay awake until the sun came up, like playing, like especially when we first got the first Nintendo set. But I don't know why. We're like, because my parents would tell us to go to bed and stuff. We'd always try to like sneak and be quiet. It was like a challenge or something.
Yeah.
We'd try to stay up all night. But.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, if anybody new has come on or anything, we still have our Kickstarter going. What do we have? Like 24 hours, less than 24 hours.
Yeah. It's for anyone who doesn't know, what is your quick elevator kind of summary for SIGNA? What would you describe it to people as?
We both kind of have a different one. I don't know. Like,
you want to go, Andrew? I'll go for it.
I was trying to stall to give myself time.
Oh, okay. I can go first. Yeah. So it's in the future. But in this future, 100 years ago, there had been a war. At the end of this war, the sun has wound up becoming a red giant, and this is a world where there's no like faster than light travel or whatever. So the people in this world are the grandchildren of this war that are probably going to be the last generation of humanity. Like there's the stars getting dimmer, but also growing. So yes, they're retreating into the asteroids. In that world, a young woman named Pinavora uncovers a mech from that war, and the mech comes alive and starts talking to her, which wasn't expected. and that mech might have might have a path out, might have a way to save the world. But the question is, save it for who? For which side, or what? Who does this machine work for? I don't know. What is its mission? No. What is yeah, is it on the side of humanity? But I don't know, what's yours?
Well, I
Andrew?
mean, the same thing, but in different words. Like, if we really had to sum it up, like really concisely, like at its most concise, I would say for the vibe of it, it's sort of like Star Wars meets Transformers. Like, it's got robots, it's got space and ships and adventurers, and not. It's got some serious things, but not too serious sometimes. So it's a mixture of like adventure and some hard sci-fi. But at its core, I think it's about a young bounty hunter kind of character. We call them freelancers or like mercenaries. So she's making her way through the universe, and she comes across this basically like living robot, kind of mysterious robot thing, and they're the usual like unlucky characters that might have a chance of fixing things.
Nice, that's cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's sort of like we're taking a lot of our influences and a lot of ideas coming from all sorts of different places and the things that we like, and kind of mixing them up together in a big stew. Hopefully people like it.
Yeah, it's a great book. Anyone who hasn't read it yet or hasn't seen it,
Thanks. Yeah, really looking forward to getting it in front of people. And then, like we were saying earlier, like issue 2 is going to be more like introducing characters and kind of diving a little more into the world and seeing a new location. And then as we go along, there will be, like you're asking earlier, more explanation and flashbacks. And you want to reveal things slowly so people are still.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you this: like the characters that we see in the first one, is that our core, or are there still major characters yet to arrive?
There's some new core characters that we haven't seen yet. Like my first like cover that I did has some characters that aren't even in the first issue.
Nice.
But that's more meant to like sum up like the first arc. Like the core characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't even got to the dog yet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We gotta have a dog. If John and I are working together, we have to have a dog.
I know. I was going to ask you, how immediate was the idea of putting a dog in? Was that instantaneous?
I'm trying to remember how the dog came in this one. I mean, I know where the inspiration for the look for the dog comes from.
Yeah.
So I had a dog that passed away that it's named after and based on, but I don't remember if we put it in for that reason or what. Because like we had Buster in the Transformers comic that was inspired by John's dog.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember. I mean, the dog was like the role of the dog was always the same, I think. Which makes it sound way more like that makes it sound like the dog is the one that saves the day in the end or something. But don't get your hopes up, everybody. The dog doesn't die. Flat out, don't worry about it. If the series ends, it's going to be a big red star and a dog floating around in a spacesuit.
Right. There's no North Dakota governors in the book at all. So.
Right.
Nice.
But no, the dog's going to be fine.
Yeah. Good.
I remember years ago I pitched an idea to John about Buster. I was like, because Thundercracker lives millions of years, and like Buster's going to live what 10, 15 years. I'm like if you ever want like a tearjerker story, you should show like how quickly Buster's life would go to Thundercracker, and like, you know what I mean? It's like, but John's like, no, I don't want to go anywhere near there. So, and I get it.
That would be a wild like concept of like do an issue of how they perceive time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm sure in their eyes, it looks like Buster's aging immediately. Like, that's wild.
I think a dog's life would be like a blink in the eye of a Transformer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those things is like that is so, like if you really start pulling that string that becomes so world breaking for the function, for the Transformers, you know what I mean? That becomes so much like, oh yeah, these guys would not act anything like human beings.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing about the way they perceive the world that would be like human beings. And that was one of the things I always worried about, or like I don't know. For me, working on Transformers stuff, that's one of the things I don't think I've ever talked about. But like those things, it's like if you really start to think about this part too hard, it's super interesting. Like it isn't just destructive, but it also is completely destructive to the way that universe functions in a practical sense. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess it's like that with most properties. If you stop and think about superheroes too much, you can find the flaws easily.
Anything. You peel away enough, and it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely. I mean, especially this sort of stuff that, like the rise of like geek culture and stuff. Like it leads to all these things having a like tremendous amount of narrative weight placed on like a structure that was never built to support that.
Yeah.
Especially when you go back to the origins of those characters, why was Superman an alien? So it could be really tough. The end. That was it.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah, that is something I've done with when you work a comic convention. People come up to you, and it requires a lot of patience to deal with them sometimes, where they'll be like, they'll tell you why Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber in canon and everything, and the actual reason is because Sam Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber, and George Lucas put no thought beyond that into it. Like that's the real answer. To take nothing away from George Lucas, but it wasn't based on some novel in the expanded universe. It was just Sam Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber, but a lot of fans refused to kind of acknowledge the realities of making this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Or like, I mean, Rey at the end of the last movie gets a yellow lightsaber, presumably because like the Luke Skywalker toy had a yellow lightsaber, right? I mean, like that's got to be the reason that J.J. Abrams put it in there.
I don't
Same
know.
thing, right? Like, just like
Did the original Luke Skywalker toy have a yellow? I don't remember that.
Yeah. And it came out of the wrist. Remember?
Oh yeah, that I remember. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I had
like
this woman come up to me at C2E2 and she was like, oh, my mom had all those old like Ewok toys, the original like Ewok toys and plastic toys. She's like, she wouldn't let us touch them. They were like antiques, and I'm like, I had those as a kid. Like you're talking about it like it's like tin toys from 100 years ago. But
I had a server in a restaurant come up to me and some friends, and she was younger, and she eventually asked us what 9/11 was like, and I was like, oh,
wow,
yeah.
Was she kidding you?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, I felt that a lot more in the last couple of years, of just the sense of, maybe it's because we deal with a lot of Transformers readers that are younger, but that we are significantly older than a lot of
I've had a number of people come up saying, like, they'll look through it, all this, like, oh, this stuff's so cool. My dad loves this stuff. I get that. I've been getting that a lot lately.
I'm sure you guys get a lot too on Instagram and stuff. People being like, I loved your Transformers comics in middle school. So even the run that we've had, I mean, we did it together like 12 years. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Agnes Garbowska at WonderCon, and she was she had a bunch of My Little Pony pages that she was selling, and this this adult woman comes up and is looking through them, and she's like, "Oh man, yeah, I read these when I was a kid, and I just started reading them, and they really hold up." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like that's like, okay, like
yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
The inexorable movement of time. It's
social media is weird too, because it's like you sort of feel like you're keeping up with people in real life, even though, or in person rather. Like I think it was John Paul Beauvais. I was like, I think it's been a decade since I saw him, and it does not feel that way because of social media and everything. But when you really think about how long it's been since you've seen someone in person, it can be shocking.
Well, someone who said they were going to be watching this tonight, and if you're there, hello, was like, we realized how long it's been since we've seen each other. And there was this one BotCon in 2009, before I even knew you guys. Like Nick Roche was there, John Paul, I think, was there. The guys who did the mosaics were there. Like it was just a huge like Josh Burcham, I think it was.
Yeah.
Casey Collar, like a whole bunch of us were there, and they had a big like backlot party for us and stuff at Paramount, I think. But anyway, him and I were like, how is it possible? That was 15 years ago. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, that's how long I've been doing this now.
Yeah.
Mike Costa was there. That's true. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's pretty shocking. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Hey, speaking of toys, though, I don't know if about props. These are out.
Oh wow, that's
Our
nice.
our McFarlane. What do you call them? The page punchers.
I didn't know
So-
McFarlane's doing Transformers. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's this one's Optimus Prime #1, and then an issue of Lost Light. I haven't taken I literally just got these. I'm not keeping them in condition. I just haven't opened them yet.
Right, is it just those 4 characters?
Yeah, these are the only ones out right now. And
Cool.
I
this
thought
one's
the Wheeljack one was going to have my issue.
it does, but it's
There's two.
It's got
Okay.
2 comics.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's got your cover. It was actually the Brendan Cahill issue I mentioned earlier, right? But it's your cover. Right? Yeah.
So the Optimus Prime, that cover that Kay did, that was like one of the last things with my design before they went with the Evergreen design. But that Optimus toy, which design is it based on? I can't tell from here. Is that the Evergreen one?
I kind of can't tell.
Too small.
Either.
Kind of generic.
Yeah. Like it's not quite the design on the cover, but I don't know if that's the logistics of physically making it. But I think it's more of the Evergreen design. But I'm not positive because like the Megatron's definitely pretty definite. I think it's that. No, maybe it isn't. I think it's that design. I don't know, man. Yeah.
It's funny how this
I'll have
stuff
to look
lasts.
them more.
And where it
Look,
shows
I got
up.
look at this stuff. They covered up the best part of the comic, where my name would be. Like, I don't know.
Is the comic just a straight reprint of this IDW stuff?
Yeah, well, let's find out.
I remember for years I couldn't walk into a Target without seeing Livio's cards, those cards that they used your art for.
Oh, those little ones, yeah. It shows up in really weird ways. Like I remember I did some design work for the Age of Extinction movie, and they told me you can't share the artwork publicly. But then I was in Little Tokyo out here, and I saw like this book in Japanese, and I was flipping through it, and my art was in there, and I couldn't read it because it was in Japanese. But it was like all the stuff I was told that you couldn't release.
Maybe it was like riffing on you, like.
I don't. It was like an official comic. It was like official like Hasbro thing.
Yeah.
I was like, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's a straight reprint. It's just different ads and doesn't have the IDW logo on it, but it's the same credit page and everything.
Do you guys think they're? I mean, I think they will. Skybound said they're going to reprint IDW stuff at some point.
Look, that's you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what is on, guys.
Oh, I'm sure that Comic-Con. I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I saw the Skybound panel. That was actually the first question somebody asked him was if they were going to reprint the other stuff.
Oh, cool.
But I'm sure that it totally makes sense for them not to do it right off the bat.
Yes.
Also, it totally makes sense they're doing a Kickstarter for like Real American Hero first because that's
Oh yeah.
That's gonna like any of that. I mean, if they do a Kickstarter edition of the IDW stuff, I mean, I think that's all good money in the bank for them. So.
Yeah, they don't owe royalties.
And we'll just be collecting the royalty checks.
Yeah. Although it will be good to get new books out with our stuff in it for conventions and stuff.
Yeah.
Remember a year ago, Livio, you were talking to me about that big like Cobra flying ship that looked like a Cobra, the base thing. The flying base at Super 7 was crowdfunding.
Yeah.
I just saw recently that didn't get funded. I was kind of surprised.
Oh, I missed that. That's a shame. Yeah. No, their stuff is amazing. All the Hasbro Pulse stuff is just crazy.
Oh, the Hasbro Pulse, yeah. Like I got his tank and but anybody in the G.I. Joe, I was talking to John about this. I like the classified line, and recently they put out a retro Duke and a retro Scarlet, and those are like some of the best looking ones they put out yet.
Nice.
Is that the Optimus? Yeah, that just looks like a traditional G1 Optimus.
Is it posable, John, or is it just a?
Oh yeah, it's actually quite posable.
Oh.
Does it transform?
Oh man, I wish I could pull out. Yeah, no. I was going to try to grab a truck and pretend like I was, transforming. You can't hang out with Batman, though.
Nice. I think the scale's off there.
My mother's name is Martha. Well,
you could have done that old movie trick where Optimus rolls in front of the camera and then you pick up a truck, like
right,
like they did with the Hobbit sometimes in the Lord of the Rings movie. The different scales. Well, anyway, do you guys want to start to wrap this up? And
Yeah. Any last thoughts to share about SIGNA?
yeah, if anybody's seeing this now or seeing it later, until 9 p.m. Eastern time, I believe, on the 3rd, our Kickstarter's still going, still live until then. So if you want to support us, that's the way to do it for now.
Yeah. That's at http://ki.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Anything you want to plug, Livio?
Just working away on stuff. I guess watch social media. Hopefully be able to share more soon. But
yeah, why don't we share our socials?
Yeah, I'm Livio Ramondelli on Twitter, Instagram, or X, Instagram.
Yeah, I'm the Jim Barber on I was going to call it Twitter. Also on Blue Sky, and
you do have an Instagram too that Andrew and I have been posting, tagging your Instagram, even though there's no content on there.
Yeah.
You need to make one, man.
I know. I will. I'm baby steps.
I
Pictures of your food.
Your first post can be the McFarlane Transformers.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe it will be.
Do it.
Well, I'm Glove Studios, almost, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and Blue Sky, and Threads, and I'm kind of on all that kind of stuff. Instagram, yeah. So I usually go by Glove Studios. That's where you can find me.
Cool. All right, guys. Great to see you as always.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for taking part, everybody who watched.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah,
appreciate all the
questions.
Good night. Talk to you later.